I just graduated from architecture school. What next? Now what? Should I go abroad to get a master's? Should I start my own firm right out of school? Should I work in a small firm or a big firm? Should I work for just one architect so that I get experience of maybe like 3 years to start my own firm? If I'm working in a big firm, will I get any recognition for what I'm doing? These are some of the very common questions that come into a young architect's head as soon as they graduate. In today's video, we are going to address the first and the most asked question is, should I go abroad to get a master's? Hi, my name is Kashmira and I'm an architect. I studied architecture in India for my bachelor's and I went to the US to get my master's degree in pure architecture. On this channel, I talk about architecture and design. Let's dive right into it. If you are thinking about going abroad to study, you might be familiar with the idea that it is in fact very expensive. It is going to cost you perhaps lakhs or even crores of rupees to get your master's degree in architecture or urban design or something related to architecture, let's say computational design or city planning or something like that. So what I did and what I think even you can try out is I first calculated the amount of money that I would have to invest in my masters. Then I contacted a couple of people who were from my own college who have gone to the US. I tried to reach out to them on LinkedIn. I tried to understand what are the perspectives of getting a job, how is it that they are feeling working there, and then I kind of got an idea about the salary that I would be getting. And then I decided that this might be a practical solution for me, and that's why I decided to move to the US. I lived there for 4.5 years. I went in 2016 and I came back in the 2020 pandemic. And it was a fantastic journey, but at the same time there are a lot of challenges and it is very difficult to secure your first job in the US. Now, if I were to talk about my side, I was very clear that I wanted to get a master's in the United States. I had been there before. I was and I am still in love with New York, LA and Chicago and places like that. And since I had seen that side of the world, I was very clear that I wanted to live in the US for at least some time of my life. And that's why I decided that I wanted to go to the US instead of the UK, and also the financial necessities and the possibility of getting a job is very important for me. So that's why I chose US over the UK. In the United States, after you graduate, you get something called an OPT, which is optional practical training, and you can work there for a minimum of 3 years on OPT, as long as you are able to find a job and what is a good fit for you and for the company. Now, another question that I get asked a lot is, should I take a loan from the bank and go abroad? And a lot of you are not going to like the answer, but my advice would be, guys, please don't go abroad by taking a loan from a bank, especially if you are in the design related field, something like an architect or something like that, because it is in fact a very high possibility that you might not be able to get a job in the US after you graduate. And in that particular scenario, you will have to come back to India, and then just think that if you will be able to pay back the loan that you have taken from the bank in your Indian salary. If the answer is yes, then sure, go ahead. Only and only go abroad to get a master's if you can financially afford it. If you cannot financially afford it, try to find a teaching assistant job or some kind of a scholarship, and only then think about going abroad. If you don't fall into that category, I would suggest you that it's better that you get a master's somewhere in India or somewhere that you can afford it, so that you don't have that pressure of that I have taken a loan and I need to pay back to the bank on your head all the time. Okay, so now I think I have put enough stress on the areas where I told you how financially difficult it might be, how stressful it might be when you are living in the United States. Now I think I should tell you more about the positive points. The initial 6 months when you join your masters are going to be really tough, really difficult, because the way your mind is conditioned and the way your brain is conditioned to look at architecture here as opposed to there is going to be so different, and you are going to have to really take up the challenge of learning something new without having a very small perspective, and develop and open up your perspective. And it might be challenging, it is very challenging, and it might be contradictory to what you have learned before, but you just take one day at a time and you grow, and eventually when you look back you will see that how much you have learned and how you have progressed. Think about it this way, your entire life when you are in India you have been fit in a certain kind of a box, and you are made to think that certain things are a certain way. But when you actually leave your home and you go somewhere else, to another country, you start realizing that maybe what I was taught right from the beginning was not the way it is, and it might be possible that there are different mindsets, there are different people who look at certain things in a different way, and eventually you grow not only as a person but also as an architect and as a professional. And for that I am so glad and so grateful that I went there and I got to learn from so many talented and interesting people. Another really good thing about studying abroad is that the way that you look at a problem, let's say an architectural problem, in India might be very different compared to the way that a foreigner or somebody who's not from India will look at the same architectural problem. Now, of course, as architects, we know that everything that we design is according to context, it is according to where your site is, according to climate, according to sustainability and things like that. But when you learn from some of the best people in the entire world, it will help you grow so much as an architect and as a professional, and will develop your mind as a whole. Since the United States is a completely different ball game altogether, you understand and grasp really quickly that without networking and without talking to people that you have not spoken to before, you won't be able to progress further in your career. And I think personally that really helps you understand humility, it helps you understand how to talk to strangers, and it also develops your communication skills. And for that I'm so grateful that I learned that in the US. One thing I really like about Americans is that they are very welcoming to people who come from different parts of the world, and they are very friendly, and they're always willing to help foreigners wherever they come from, and they are very accommodative. Of course, at certain instances you will have to face discrimination, and that has happened with me as well, but you just have to learn to ignore that, because there might be like 75% of the people who are like really wonderful, and there might be some people who are not. So you just have to focus on the positive instead of the negative. Now, regardless and despite of everything what you have heard me saying, if you still decide that you want to go to the United States, it will be a good idea for you to find a part-time job. In India we are conditioned to think that white collar jobs are really prestigious, but the way that Americans look at blue collar jobs or some other different kinds of professions is very different. They just think about a job as a job, and you might even have to work in a coffee shop or be making pizzas, or if you are lucky you might get a part-time job in an architecture firm, which will be wonderful for you, of course. But at the same time it is going to be very stressful and difficult to manage your part-time job, your masters, and also doing all the household chores which we Indians have never done before in our life. If you want to know more about what it's like to study masters in the United States, or what particular area should I get a master's in, let me know in the comment section below. I'll make a separate video about it. Until next time. Bye.